Hello and welcome to Pluribus Unum's Fireside Chats. Not as good as FDRs, but hey, it's something. Now this Thoughts On is going to be interesting, I think, because unlike other Thoughts On episodes, where you can generally kind of, at the very least, take a decent guess at whether or not it'll be a positive one or a negative one. Come on, did you honestly think my Dave Rubin one was going to be a positive video? Or my, what's another one? One that's the opposite? Or that my secular talk one was going to be incredibly negative? Most of the time when you go in, you at the very least can take a decent guess at what I would say. But I'm going to have a feeling that this one might be a little bit of might do a little bit of teetering. And you'll see why. Well, just by saying that, you'll probably understand why. But before we get into that, let's get right into the news. Biggest news story of the night. We can't skip over this. Russia literally invaded Ukraine. Actually legitimately invaded Ukraine. No ifs, ands, or buts. Troops were sent into Ukraine and fighting began. And surprisingly, this is actually a harder military operation than we'd think. Now, did I think that this was going to happen? I was thinking that they wouldn't be that stupid. Putin revealed he kind of is. So basically, Putin, for those who don't know what happened, 2 regions in Ukraine are governed by, the eastern parts of Ukraine are governed by extremely pro-Soviet bloc presidents, or governors, I guess, whatever you would call them. I guess they consider themselves presidents, but they're more state governors, according to how the rest of Ukraine sees them. But basically, they have been doing desperately to try and be oh, please, Russia, put us into the rest of Russia. We are you. We are not the rest of Ukraine. And Putin essentially did this big speech where he gave very valid reasons as to why he might do this. And then a couple of days later, announced that he would be sending troops for a supposed secret military operation to try and stop because Ukraine doesn't want those 2 areas to break away, because that means that sections of Ukraine would be under Russian control. And they do not like that in any capacity. Putin released this big statement that was very controversial, which was basically a blood and soil speech. And then a couple days later, he released another statement where he basically said that he would be doing the secret military operation. And most people, and I remember when this happened, because I saw people memeing on it. When the second speech came up, people were memeing on it, haha, that's so funny. Putin didn't even change his suit and tie, and wait. And then it started clicking in people's heads, wait. No, there's no way. And then it was discovered that Putin had actually recorded the second speech that was released 2 days after the blood and soil speech, where he was saying Ukraine is ours. Ukraine is ours because it is how it was. Lenin was done to give Ukraine to Ukraine. It was discovered in the metadata when a Russian journalist got their hands on the video that it was recorded the day of the first speech. So indicating very clearly that Putin intended to invade Ukraine, and no diplomatic solution was even possible at that point. Things had gotten into a head. People were expecting Zelensky to leave or be killed, but he's still pulling strong apparently. And interestingly, he's going to be put on he's basically been on the front lines to a degree. Russian citizens started protesting against the war. And of course, in America, tankies very, very vehemently supported Putin. Even though in the freaking speech that he made, he bad-mouthed a communist leader, they're gonna side with Putin. I've been seeing dumb take after dumb take after dumb take about this. But the dumbest one is one that there's no way I can say this, because since I put them on the show, I gotta call them out on the show as well. Came from former Green Party candidate Ian Schlockman. He gave literally the dumbest, most absolutely brain-dead response to the situation, where he said 100% of the blame was on the West and Ukraine. He was like, Ukraine is doing shelling in these 2 regions, and Russia's just coming in to save the regions. And that since those regions want to be part of Russia, they should be allowed to do so. I immediately jumped on and said, so, you support all independence movements? All popular independence movements? Every single one? Every single one? You support all of them all? Or is this a case-by-case basis? And he said point blank that he supports all popular independence movements. You know where I went next. I talked about Taiwan. And Ian Schlockman did a little bit of a dumb. He somehow really didn't understand how the situation was any remotely similar. And then he sent me an article that showed that Taiwan does not like mainland China and wants to be independent from mainland China. So then I continued and pressed him because he kept dodging the question. I kept pressing him and said, so you support the Taiwanese independence movements? And he responded with that he supports the Taiwanese status quo, which is basically them remaining part of China. And then went on to say that a majority of the Taiwanese people support it. Even though he literally linked me an article whose headline is, the Taiwan does not support mainland China. And any quick Google search will show that a majority of the Taiwanese people consider themselves independent and want to be fully independent. The only reason that the Taiwanese government doesn't push for independence is because they already see themselves as independent. And then I goofed on him. He also went on to say that since Ukraine was shelling those 2 regions, that justified it. I said that previously. But he then went on to say, I went on to explain, so was the shelling before or after Russia engaged all their troops onto the Ukrainian border? To which he somehow decided to compare Russia to Mexico, of all countries, and basically said, oh yeah, so if Mexico put all of its troops on their border, the U.S. should start bombing them. Which is a dumb statement to begin with, because it's first of all, if Mexico literally did just start putting all their troops on the border, what else is that supposed to mean? But second, I just felt that comparison was flawed, because every time I try to compare when I was comparing Ukraine wanting to be independent from Russia to Taiwan wanting to be independent from China, and that was a bad comparison. He told me point blank that was a bad comparison that just didn't have any bearing on what was going on. Even though I brought it up literally just to prove the fact that he doesn't support all independence movements. I brought up the fact that comparing Mexico to Russia made no sense, and that would make more sense to compare Russia to the United States, because they're the countries with the most power and are imperialist. To which he responds in a way that is just so dumb, I can't grasp it. He literally responded with, yes, Russia, the great imperialist power. Eye roll emoji. They're invading Ukraine right now. They are literally doing imperialism at its most basic level. But of course, he just wants to do the bad West is bad movement. I'm so flabbergasted. It's so dumb. Even if you wanted to do the thing where it's like, well, Russia and NATO both expanded upon their arguments. Both of them expanded and tried to make sure that their side of the argument was heard and blah, blah, blah. If you wanted to do the both sides are to blame, that would be at the very least somewhat compatible with reality. But if you're literally going to go so far as to say that Russia invading a country is not Russia's fault, you legitimately have no grasp of reality. And guess what? Believe it or not, I'm not in favor of war. This isn't a warmonger's argument. This is just pointing out literal facts. There are people who are legitimately trying to do the, if you believe any of this Ukraine stuff, then you're the same people who would have fallen for WMDs. When literally that's what Russia is doing. Russia is saying, Ukraine is shelling us. Here is a video of our state media guys saying it. And here are our state media puppets to say, no, we actually are good guys. It's how can you actually legitimately look to Lee Camp and Richard Medhurst and Caleb Maupin and be like, these guys don't have a bias in this whatsoever. We have to 100% trust what they say of all people on this. Even though they literally get paychecks from the Russian government, these guys know what's up. It's just so dumb. much like the invasion. It's so dumb. Like, I mean, ironically, Populism Updates has actually been giving a very interesting analysis of this conflict. They've been saying, like, in actuality, what Putin was probably hoping for was an easy sweep in, sweep out of Ukraine because he thought that Zelensky was a weak leader. But it turns out Zelensky has fully stepped up to the plate of actually being a competent leader. And even if this fails, Zelensky's probably going to be looked down upon very favorably in history. A lot of people are looking at Zelensky now and saying, like, he is a bastion of democracy in a rising autocratic government. And they even point out the fact that Putin probably wouldn't have done this if the far right wasn't in the rise in the world. Like, see, all these far right movements are actually gaining momentum. So Putin thinks that since the far right's gaining momentum, he can actually do this without getting in any trouble because the far right will have his back. But as I said previously, things aren't going so well. And we're also seeing a lot of people look at Ukraine a bit more critically. Like, I mean, a lot of people are saying, like, what if Ukraine is bad? Like, what if Ukraine literally is, like, the bastion of Nazis and anti-Semites that Russia's trying to paint them as? The tanky left have gone so far as to be like, you see, this is just denazification. You see, these proves that the liberals are actually fascists because they should be in favor of ending the Nazis, when in fact the Nazis, like, it's not as bad as you think. Like, I mean, I've seen, like, data that shows, like, of all of, like, the Baltic region, like, Baltic nations that are very similar to Ukraine in certain, like, post-Soviet bloc areas, while Ukraine probably has an anti-Semitism problem, it is definitely not as pronounced as other Baltic nations. I mean, I'm trying not to pull this card, but, like, Zelensky's Jewish. He's Jewish, so I guess that the anti-Semitism problem was not as bad as they think it is. And it's not like an Obama situation where it's like, when he got elected, a bunch of people were, like, chanting, like, oh, Obama's a monkey or whatever. But, like, Zelensky's win has seemingly, like, gone through researches of, like, oh, people are actually thinking more about Zelensky. Now, that's pretty much all I gotta say on the Ukraine situation as of right now, because nothing else big has happened. We'll have to wait and see how this develops. Will Russia leave, or will they continue? Another story that's relatively sad is the Texas governor has called on citizens to report parents of trans kids for abuse. Governor Greg Abbott has called on licensed professionals and members of the general public to report the parents of transgender minors to state authorities if it appears the minors are receiving gender-affirming medical care. The directive was part of a letter Abbott, a Republican, sent Tuesday to the Department of Family and Protective Services, calling on it to conduct a prompt and thorough investigation of any reported instances of minors undergoing elective procedures for gender transitioning. Abbott's letter follows an opinion released on Monday by Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, which stated that allowing minors to receive transition care such as puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgery is child abuse under state law. It is really screwed up. And, I mean, there's not much else I can say that hasn't been said already. Like what they're doing is the actual child abuse by not letting trans kids go through the medical procedures that they need. But there's also been a little bit of a debate, like people are going a bit more angry on the electoralism debate again, which this is going to be a relatively minor part, but it's like, they're saying like people who are responding with vote harder to this situation are cringe. And it's like, I mean, it's the only way you're going to get rid of Abbott to vote him out. I mean, if Beto's the gubernatorial nominee, then, I mean, it would probably be in the interest of trans people in the state to vote for him if they can. I mean, I guess. It would be the same case for other, like, Democrats in this position if they made an explicit promise to repeal this. I see this as a little bit of an election thing. Like, what this is Abbott is kind of seeing the writing on the walls. Like, I mean, many people have noticed that Texas is starting to turn a little bit bluer with each passing day. And you can tell because a lot of people have actually been putting a lot more emphasis on Texas. Like, Bernie campaigned there really hard, and many people are like, oh, will Bernie win Texas? And Biden campaigned there relatively a decent amount. Many people were thinking, like, could Texas potentially flip? And now AOC is currently in the state trying to push extensively hard for some progressive firebrands like Greg Saucer and Jessica Cisneros. And other progressive groups have tried to push efforts onto them as well as some other candidates. So as you can see, Texas is starting to change a little bit. But as you can tell, the old guard of Texas really doesn't want to let go. As you can tell, they're really doing everything in their power to make sure they can have some sort of lasting impact on Texas, which is why they're trying to gerrymander the seats in a certain way, which is why the governor is doing a lot of these big things. Like, they're essentially trying to push everything they can into these culture war issues so that they can guarantee their foothold. Will it work? I don't know. In the meantime, before you can vote people out, there are other things you can do. Donate to certain trans charities that would help these people. I retweeted one. I might retweet it again. Like, there was a link thing where it was like, here are a list of trans charities that you can help during this situation. I'll probably retweet it again and include a link in the description or a card or whatever. There's also, you could protest on the streets, etc., etc. Like, all this stuff you can do if you can. Make sure the stories are heard. Make sure that this doesn't just fade away into the background, I guess you could say. So anyways, after those sad stories, let's move on to some fun stories. First, a new candidate entered in the race in Colorado District 3, and he made a really interesting ad. He's a guy by the name of Alex Walker, and he's trying to unseat Lauren Boebert, and he's made an ad that has gotten a lot of people's attention. Basically, the crux of the ad is that he is tired of all the bullshit that Lauren Boebert is pushing, and the way that he has chosen to spread this message was a campaign ad where literal feces falls out of the sky and lands on people, and he's like, "Hi there, we're sick and tired of all the bullshit. Colorado needs a bull, not a bullshitter." And then it cuts to Lauren Boebert with like a cannon of bullshit, and then it's just spraying it around, and it's like, that was an interesting ad. But here's the thing, Alex Walker is a bullshitter too. You see, his big thing is that he's running as literally running as the same thing that lost the election last time. He's running as I'm not like one of those radical Democrats. I'm like a more moderate Democrat. You see, I have policies that lean right. Like his main policy platforms is literally lower taxes and less government. So it's like, you're running in the wrong primary, dude. Like, literally, he wants to end the mask mandates. This is not, you're wrong party. And in this race, you kind of don't need to try and rehash strategies that don't work. Like, Lauren Boebert, her race was actually close in the 2018 election cycle. Colorado District 3, the incumbent in that race, it was a different person at the time. He ran against a candidate by the name of Diane Mitz-Bush. She was a progressive candidate, and she ran a progressive campaign, and she nearly won. Like, she got really close that cycle. But then in the 2020 election cycle, Diane decided to run a different style campaign. She ran a more moderate campaign, running to the right of her. She started saying things like Medicare for all and the Green New Deal are impractical, even though she ran on both in the previous cycle. Basically, she pulled an Amar Campanajad. Boebert, meanwhile, ran against the Republican incumbent to the right of that incumbent and won in that primary. Now, unsurprisingly, when one candidate is already running as the extreme right-wing candidate, and then the center-right candidate enters the scene, who do you think they're going to go for? And lo and behold, Boebert ended up winning. Like I always say, they never go for Diet Coke. It's never Diet Coke. They always go for Coke. Sol Sandoval is the good candidate in the race, and you should be backing her instead. Anyways, now let's move on to the next story. This is going to be interesting. Well, no, it won't be, but it will be, but it won't be. So, an Oklahoma Republican named Jin Inhofe, the senior senator, announced that he will be resigning in January of 2023. Now, you might say, well, that doesn't seem that off. Here's the thing. He just won re-election 2 years ago. So many people have been wondering, why? Well, it turns out the guy had COVID, and now that's basically his excuse. He has COVID, and he doesn't feel that he will be in a prime position to be the candidate, and he will instead be seeking to retire. And in the special election that will be held, he has already announced that he will be supporting his campaign manager in this new election. And here's an interesting thing, like the story also has technically a little bit of a part too, because the person who ran against him in the 2020 cycle also got in the news for like, I mean, there's a Human Rights Report video where he already talked about it, but it's like Abby Broyles, a basically Yang Gang-ish candidate. I think she was Yang Gang, but she announced, like, she didn't announce, but it was revealed that she went to a like bar, not a bar. She got drunk, and then she went to a children's sleepover party and then started berating them, and now she's in deep water because of it. That's all I have to say on that. That's just funny. But anyways, now let's move on to a heartwarming story. Now, by heartwarming, I mean this is just an interesting... Well, actually, this is also me gloating, because I called it. Biden announces Ketanji Brown Jackson to be the first black woman to sit on the Supreme Court. I called it. There was literally no way that this couldn't have happened. Ketanji, I said this many times. People were telling me that I was wrong because they thought, oh, they were smarter than me. But I actually proved I was smarter than them. The Washington consensus wins again. Ketanji was literally like bred for the position to be in the Supreme Court. She was elevated specifically by Biden so that I would assume that she would be in a prime position to be in the Supreme Court. Obama, like, she was on the short list of Obama Supreme Court nominees, and the only reason he didn't pick her was because she was not, it wasn't that she was a liberal, she is a liberal, but, like, it wasn't that she was too far left, but it was that he knew that her nomination probably wouldn't go through a deeply Republican Senate, because yes, she was, compared to the rest of the court, she is relatively to the left. Like, I mean, if she were put on the court, I would take a guess that she would at the very least be in line with the liberal brand of the court. She'd probably be further left than Breyer, but I don't know if she'd be further left than Kagan or Sotomayor. Maybe one, not the other. I don't know which one. Whichever one's listed further left now, she'll be like not as far left as them, but further left than the one that's closer to the center. Or maybe she will be further left than both. Because apparently she, of all the choices for the position, she was the most far left. Now, despite this, she actually has one of the big things that I made as an example as to why she would be a good choice, well, not even a good choice, but like was the best choice for the position, to Biden's viewpoint, was that one of the big things that Biden wants is like bipartisanship, and technically she has bipartisan support. When she was elevated by 3 Republican senators, Lindsey Graham, Lisa Murkowski, and Suzanne Collins. And if I had to take and as of right now, unfortunately, Graham has basically changed his mind on Jackson, or maybe on principle, on principle, quote unquote. He's been saying like her nomination proves that the far left won again. So if I had to take a wild guess, maybe he won't vote for her. But the other two, they will. It's more than likely a chance that they will. And since she was elevated relatively recently, there's a good chance that Sinema and Manchin will also vote for her, because they voted. I would assume that they voted for her elevation. Though, of course, with Graham flipping, there's a chance that maybe 1 or 2 of them will flip, but I don't really see any reason that they would. Now, of course, you may argue maybe they're really too far left, but at the end of the day, really the important matter is Roe v. Wade. That's all that matters to, every single Democrat and Murkowski and Collins. That's essentially their one issue when it comes to the Supreme Court, Roe v. Wade. At most, Manchin might flip and vote against her. But I think Kyrsten Sinema will probably just stay in line just because she's a woman. She's got to support women's issues. Okay, so the last news story is a culmination of many events that happened. For those who have no clue what has been going on, you see, the People's Party has kind of imploded. You see, the People's Party had a very not so good week. Okay, so basically, here's a rundown of all the events that happened for the People's Party. On February 11th, many prominent officials in the state affiliate resigned from their position, citing a disagreement over the Freedom Convoy in Canada. Basically, Nick Brana has tried to do the new hip left, like the new thing that leftists like to do, where it's like, we support the Freedom Convoy. Yeah, we don't believe in mandates. Like, and they're like, don't, like, and when they would get harassed because they would say, actually, vaccines are shown to be very effective, and here's the scientific study. They'd be like, oh, you're a Pfizer troll. And they keep also explaining, like, isn't the Freedom Convoy, like, filled with white supremacists and has been fully denounced by every major labor group? Lol, you guys are shit libs. Then on February 17th, the Washington affiliate of the People's Party decided to disaffiliate from the MPP, citing that the MPP claims that they want a democratic and transparent political system, but they don't live up to set expectations. One of the big things that many people have been pointing out is that even though there's this show of, like, all these people vote for this, blah, 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 like this huge show of democracy, the party is essentially just the Brana project. Nick Brana, the party founder, is literally just, he's basically the authoritarian dictator of the party. Whatever he says goes. Then on February 19th, the Florida affiliate circulated a petition to have a member by the name of Sabrina Pena Young expelled from the party and accused her of being a liberal contractor because she mentions that her 12-year-old son died under the Castro administration. And they said, we don't agree with that, even though Sabrina was the person who was in Cuba. She's Cuban, and the rest were white, so I think she has a little bit of an understanding of Cuba more than you guys. Okay, so next was in February 20th, two-time Democratic Senate candidate from West Virginia turned MPP activist Paula Jean Swearingen announced that she was resigning as well because Brana had purged 5 members of the national board, which included, I think, Sabrina, because they were doing an investigation into Brana. Said investigation was revealed to be a sexual harassment allegation by a female member of the MPP. And one of the members that was expelled out of the Sunday Purge, which is what the Purge has been called, Regina Clark, said of the investigation, as the investigation went on, it was clear that there was sexual harassment going on, and for other alleged acts, there was a debate on whether or not whether it was harassment or extended further. So basically, the people who were in charge of the investigation into Nick Brana's sexual harassment conveniently were expelled from the party, even though they claim that these allegations against Brana are trumped-up charges. And the only people that are affiliated with the party that are still there are the ones who don't believe in these allegations. So, like, I asked this point, like, to Brana, it's like, Brana, so wait, you fired all the people who were investigating you, even though if you were innocent, an investigation would prove you're innocent, right? It gets worse, because apparently they issued a response, and the response is this huge freaking tirade where it's like, where he denies the allegations, claims that they are motivated by some form of malice. In this case, this is the title of it, this is the title of his response, People's Party blocks liberal takeover attempt. Like, literally going in, he wants you to take his side. Any normal person would have said, my response, or what I choose to say, or something like that. They would say something very benign, but he's literally just like, nope, right out the gate, you have to see that this is a bad thing. Especially considering, like, even if you're not a MPP member, I mean, like, not even if you're not an MPP member, but, like, if you're someone who's not paying attention to these allegations very closely, there's a good chance that an MPP member just sees this article, just reads that title, and is like, yes, we saved our party from the liberals. But wait, this gets worse, because as he goes on, he says, like, all these things about how this whole sexual harassment allegations were brought up by people who wanted to turn the party into a woke liberal thing, and that this is a thing to stop wokeism, and that people who are intentionally trying to misrepresent them as, like, a red-brown alliance, like, this is all, like, some very, very bad, like, evil liberal takeover, which statement does not help you in any form, Brana. That statement does not help you Because that's literally what every person who is rightfully accused of sexual harassment would do. They blame it on a woke cancel culture and all this junk. But wait, it gets worse. Because Nick Branagh actually decided to go on a couple of shows to try and paint himself in a better light. First, he wanted the Jimmy Dore show, which I'm not going to play because I don't care, because it was essentially just a softball interview. It was like, hey, Nick, did you sexually harass people? No, Jimmy, did you? Pfft, of course not, ha 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 ha. Because those two are sexual harassing pests, and I literally bet when the cameras were off, they literally bragged about what they did. But then, status quo, Jordan Chariton decided to invite Branagh on as well, and Branagh, for some reason, decided to agree. And then you'll find out, this is how he responds.
So I want to start with just kind of a couple baselines here. Can you confirm that an internal investigation at MPP was launched in December after a subordinate that you said you have said you're in a were in a relationship with had made an allegation?
This is a part of a much wider and longer standing campaign to reorient the party.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you, can you confirm that in December?
There was.
Literally the first question out of the gate, Branagh tries to deflect. Like, literally the first thing that he tries to do is deflect it and to be like, because he keeps trying to push, like, this is some big liberal woke conspiracy trying to destroy his party, when it's literally like, dude, you're basing this on nothing. Like, literally nowhere in that response does he even say, like, oh, here's a proof. Like, if he had, like, a screenshot of the girl saying, like something, then maybe that'd be something. But he doesn't prove anything. He just literally just says words, and it's just like, believe me. It's like, it's not how it works, Branagh. You have to actually give some evidence of any sort. Like, I mean, if this is so bad, if this is, like, so blatantly cut and dry, then it should be very easy to debunk. But wait, it gets worse. Here's what Branagh decided to say as well.
Jordan,
and you're going to try to deflect?
Are you a personal friend of the accuser or not?
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. That is a lie. That is a lie. Jordan, have you been accused of your own allegation that was false?
Nick, are you going to deflect, or you're going to answer questions?
Look, I didn't know what to believe at first, but I'll be honest. I'm going to say this very clearly. In fact, hold on. I'll actually do it live. I'm gonna do it live. You see, since Nick Branagh for some reason doesn't have me blocked or still following me for some reason, I can DM him. So I'm going to DM him this. Not gonna lie, that status quo interview made you look 10 times more guilty. Hold on, I should probably add something else. 10 times more guilty than the allegations themselves. I should probably also add the SQ interview and your actions made you look 10 times more guilty than the allegations themselves. And send. And I'm going to screen cap and post it on the Twitter so you'll know that this actually has something to do with my podcast. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's move on to the main topic of this video. The subject of today's episode is a man by the name of BadEmpanada. A quick glance at his channel bio will explain who he is. Videos on history, politics, society, and culture, covering a broad array of topics in way too much depth. Subscribe today. BadEmpanada is a left-leaning YouTuber who was, I guess, part of the BreadTube wave. He was like in the second wave, like, I guess you could say Vosh. Oh no, he doesn't like Vosh, so that's a bad comparison for me to make. But anyways, like, even though his thing says, like, wide array of topics, he mostly focuses on a pretty standard brand. Like let's look at some of his videos. Why Pinochet apologists are wrong, Bolsonaro and Latin American fascism. Okay, let's see. And the next video was Aboriginal Australian history and white guilt, response to Stefan Molyneux. Why the U.S. is sending humanitarian aid to Venezuela. Venezuela, the true face of the opposition. Christchurch attack, they did this. BreadTube getting started guide, leftist only. BadEmpanada 1000 subscriber Q&A. Venezuela, race, class, English, and the opposition. Australian unions suck, and here's why. Australian election politics primary 2019. Gentrification. What is Peronism? Who did Che Guevara murder? Like, as you can see, there's a lot of other... Let's look at some more things. Like, let's look a little bit afterwards. Nationalism, good or bad, complicated with Evo Morales in the thumbnail. Che Guevara, homophobic, racist. Columbus, actually evil. Military coup against Bolivia's president. David Pacman is wrong about Bolivia. Situation in Bolivia and discussion of Latin American politics. Remembering Argentina's dictatorship. Bolivia is descending into dictatorship. The Chile protests and Pinochet's curse. Let me see how Cuba works. As you can see, he seems to have a general focus on Latin America politics in specific. Of course, that's not his only thing, as I've showed before. He's done other videos. His most recent videos are how racism was invented, how the U.S. inspired Nazis, cutting through the BS on Xinjiang. Now, of course, that's not the recent video, but I'm talking about the recent videos of don't have anything to do with Latin America. Because, like, he does do other topics, but like I said, he primarily focuses on Latin America. Now, believe it or not, that is both a good thing and a bad thing. Now, I might say, how's that a good and a bad thing? Well, let me explain. You see, when he does this, it's of course good that he's making these issues well known, that there's this sort of veneer of like, oh yeah, he cares a lot about Latin American issues and all this stuff. That's very interesting. I do so as well. Quite a number of politics YouTubers will do this as well. But one small thing that this is probably very unintentional, or could be very intentional. There's a very good chance that he'll see this video and then respond to it. So I want to make sure everything's clear so that he doesn't misinterpret what I'm saying, and I guess I wouldn't misinterpret what he's saying. So basically, when he does this, it kind of makes it seem... Now I know this is probably me reading way too much into it, but from the fact that he primarily focuses on Latin American issues, it could also just be me being stupid. It means that he could potentially be tricking people into thinking that he's Latin American. Now, I mean, not necessarily mean Latin American, like Hispanic, Latin, or whatever. In fact, he moved to Argentina. That's how far he's willing to trick us. But I basically mean it in the sense that he's this sort of... if you look at a picture of him, it's like he looks vaguely ethnic. He talks very much about Latin American issues, but he seems to be hiding the fact that he's, like, not necessarily, like, he's hiding the fact that he's not Latino. That's how it came off to me, because I was expecting, like, a video where he said, like, I am not Latino, or whatever. But in a way, he did do it, but he also didn't do it. Because I guarantee you, at the very least, this is just a common misconception that I'm clearing up. But basically, here's my evidences that he is not Latino. The biggest ones come from, ironically, his Spanish-speaking channels. His first Spanish-speaking channel was Gringuito, and his second Spanish-speaking channel, Gorsh. His title is Un gringo que se cree especial creo su canal español. Basically, now you might be wondering, okay, what about it? The word gringo, the gringo part is what gets me, it was what basically caught my eye, because gringo is not a term that you would use if you were Latino. Like, because he's using those terms to refer to himself. Gringo is a term specifically used to refer to people who are white, who are not of Latin American descent. Like, that's the whole point. Now, originally, that could have just been me being, like, confused. But I do have some slight suspicion that this is potentially something that he is playing up. Like, maybe he's trying to, at the very least, insinuate that he has some Latin in him, because and this is another one that it could literally just be me reading way too much into it. But I think it's because he also sounds ethnic. And I know this for a fact that it's not his real voice. Here's the voice that he puts on for his videos.
That's right, it's a 10K subscriber special. Well, I actually have like 12,000 now, so that's cool, I guess.
Okay, now here's a voice clip from another video that he did from really early on in his channel.
What is disputed is what happened when the election results stopped being updated on that night. Once they were finally updated on the next day, Morales had 47% of the vote.
Again, it could literally just be me, but it seems to me like it sounds a lot more like he's putting on some sort of like vaguely ethnic sounding voice when he's doing his videos. Now, of course, they could just be literally just be him like, dude, I'm just projecting my voice, which is fair. I mean, he could do literally the exact same thing about me then and me now and go like, oh, does this mean he was putting on a voice? But like that is technically neither here nor there. Like I mean, that doesn't necessarily detract from the actual content he posts, which I'll be honest, relatively good. I mean, he does really well video essays. They've been really well put together. They don't come out a lot, because that's the joke of video essays. They're like an hour long and you work on them for 3 months. I guess that's why my videos don't count as video essays, because I get them done in a timely manner. And I've watched a lot of his video essays and they were, again, really good. Like the Xinjiang video. That video I've used a lot of times in political debates about the Xinjiang massacre, like the Xinjiang genocide. Like I've used it a lot of times, and I've used it alongside the Vosh one, so I could be like, so you can't say that I'm citing one side of YouTube versus another. I'm literally citing two people who don't like each other, and also because their content is relatively different in regards to how they show their points. Vosh literally like live streams his research into the subject. Meanwhile, BadEmpanada did all the research prior and then compels it together in a very easily digestible format. I haven't watched all of his videos. Like, I mean, no offense, but when your videos are literally like an hour long, I mean, I kind of don't want to watch all of them. Like, I mean, the Uyghur one I wanted to watch because I wanted to understand the situation that was going on with the Uyghurs. I watched his one about how Bolivia won, and I did watch the one about how the U.S. inspired Nazis, because it's like, okay, now you have my attention. I'm very interested to see how that pans out. Especially considering I think I argued against it at one point, so it's like, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I gotta see if I'm wrong. Turns out I kinda am. No, I pretty much am. And yeah, BadEmpanada showed that I was stupid. But anyways, that's not necessarily the biggest thing that BadEmpanada is known for. Well, I mean, that is technically the biggest thing BadEmpanada is known for. But another thing that he's known for is the fact that he's... Like, I mean, it seems that he has the video essayist problem, which, I mean, technically, I could have too. Maybe I do. It's that the video him is a lot different than Twitter him. And he has frequently gotten into attacks, attacked a lot of people on Twitter. You know, Merrick, what's her name? You know, that's all I know by Merrick, or Punished Mother, I think is her name. By name, I mean her Twitter handle. He's also gotten in arguments with Vosh, Xanderhall. You know, like, he was one of the, I think, the forefront leaders of, like, the anti-debate bro people. Like, debate bros are bad for content because of X, Y, Z. And sometimes he would be invited on to discuss his issues, where he would definitely not do a good job making his arguments. Take this debate with Socialism Done Left.
Hello, how are you doing?
Hey, bud.
Yep. Hey, bud, how you doing?
We live?
Yep.
All right, I'd just like to announce that if anyone wants to see some hot bitches getting fucked in the pussy and ass, head over to Pornhub.com and xvideos.com.
And then he was, like, they looked at his tweets and he revealed, like, basically that he had no intention of actually debating the points or anything of the sort, and was instead just going to try and get them banned. However, BadEmpanada has recently reneged that point and has actually started to debate some people, I think. He said that there was a debate with Destiny, where, I think basically the whole time he was basically like saying like, let's do a debate, and then like, we're on a debate right now. He's like, no, I want to schedule a different debate, and it's like, why would we schedule a different debate? You're right here. I don't remember that. I think it's what happened, but I think they did a different debate. Either that or he reposted that debate on his second channel, which is a good segue. BadEmpanada has a second channel where he basically streams and like post some VODs from those streams. And it's basically another testament to show that he's not really that good outside of prepared content, which is, again, a thing you could say about me. In fact, literally, my podcast used to be completely atrocious until I started preparing a lot more for them. Literally, my podcast used to be literally me coming up with a topic the day of or the day right before it comes out. But now I literally have podcasts prepared very handily for the next couple of days. Well, not for the next couple of days, but like for the next couple of weeks. See, there you go. Proof of, again, I made a mistake and I'm just going to leave it in. Prepared content, I don't get to do that. Except for the times I do that, but that's beside the point. Now, of course, there's been this recent thing that Vosh tried to push where it's like, oh, you see the video essayists, they're like a huge detriment for the left because the video essayists have been doing the same thing to debate bros, but it's like, I'm not going to get into that because I don't believe in either. There's some people who are good at video essays, there's some people who are good at debating. Let people be good at what they can do. But his second channel has been really giving me a lot of content that I can't, like, I mean, like, I'm not even subscribed to his main channel. I just check out the videos whenever they come out because it's not like I'm missing anything if I don't subscribe. And, like, his second channel is really just, I mean, it's not necessarily his shitpost channel, but it's definitely, like, the channel where he's definitely not putting the most effort into. He makes a lot of statements that are just flat out not true, or he doesn't give any citations for because he doesn't have any effort to do a little bit more research before he does his stream. In fact, I think the stream that he did the most research for was the one where he accused Vosh of being a pedo, and even then, his research was kind of like, what? Like, I mean, one of his pieces of evidence for Vosh being a pedo was that Vosh liked a tweet of an artist who drew a college version of a character, but we will talk a little bit more about that when I inevitably do a video on Vosh, because this is supposed to be BadEmpanada time, and the point that I was trying to make about him was that he doesn't necessarily research all of the things that are needed to be researched in his episodes of his, like, stream. Like, the Chilean presidential election stream that he did, he just had no clue about anything. He was like, okay, let's take a look at this Chilean election. Boric is center-left, based on nothing. Like, he doesn't cite anything about Boric to indicate that he's center-left. He just says Boric is center-left. And again, bases it on literally nothing. And you could tell he didn't know what he was going into, was because as he was going through the elections, he was like, the Patriotic Union, that's clearly like a super far-right party. Oh no, wait, it's Marxist-Leninist. It's like, he couldn't have even done like a glance of the party's platforms before doing the stream, or like done like a brief analysis during the stream or something. Like, I mean, it's really weird and really dumb. A more recent one that caught my eye was when he did a video on Caleb Maupin. Now the thing is, BadEmpanada used to be originally like the super anti-Caleb Maupin people, but now it seems that he's like kind of changing his mind. I'm not saying he's like the Caleb Maupin super fan, but he again says some things that are just flat out untrue. Like, the video title at first is literally just called Caleb Maupin Isn't a Nazbol. And he goes on to say that what the actual policies that Maupin espouses is that he essentially wants the US to return to FDRism, which doesn't make any sense because Maupin has openly stated that he wants to be like a Browderite. Like, that's one of the figures that he keeps pointing to in regards to his platform. Like, he's a Browderite, and consistently craps on the people who are basically trying to return to FDRism, you know, like Bernie and AOC. And I left a comment on that video that's really just like, because that video just made me so, like, mad that it's just like, I had to say this because the fact that he's not saying this is infuriating. The comment I left was, I love how exactly nothing in this video has anything to do with him being a Nazbol. I'm pretty sure when his detractors call him a Nazbol, they're referring to his admiration of Nazbol figures like Alexander Dugin, his love for the most reactionary elements of socialist thought like the authoritarianism of the USSR and China, him platforming people like Jody Brower, who has called propagation of identity politics, including LGBT ideology, as reactionary and anti-working class, and him claiming that the world is run by a satanic cabal of bankers. Literally not that long afterwards, like, Maupin literally invited a person of the LaRouche Institute, like a LaRoucheite, which is literally like the third positionist Nazbol extraordinaire of America. Like, literally, he's basically the figure of American Nazbolism. Like, he invited that guy to an event, and it's like, you still believe he's not a Nazbol now? It really is like a weird contrast from how he used to treat Maupin originally, where he has, like, literally treated Maupin as, like, a not-so-good person. Like, as a Nazbol, essentially. But honestly, the one thing that made me legitimately realize maybe the second channel isn't really that informative was his video called "I'm Not a Leftist, Here's How the Left Should Be." Now, on paper, that's a good idea. That sounds like a good idea. He's basically trying to address the point of, like, liberals who believe that they are on the left, when in actuality they are not. And we see this all the time. There are a lot of people who say they're on the left, like Samir Khan, Jackson Hinkle, like all these people who claim to be on the left, but really, they don't really seem to be on the left. Like, I mean, Destiny, to bring him back up again, he used to be considered a big part of BreadTube, which was like the big, like, left-wing takeover of YouTube, and he's not, like, he's never, I don't even think he ever identified as a leftist. His overall point seemed to make sense, but there's one part that legitimately just, it made me go, that is just the dumbest thing I could have ever heard you say when you're making this point.
If you want to be on the left, you're either an anarchist, a communist, well, basically just those two things. You're an anarchist or a communist.
And I think I don't know if I actually did post something about this. I'm pretty sure I restrained myself from posting something about this because it's just like, based upon BadEmpanada's logic, that means that Evo Morales is not a leftist. His party, Movement for Socialism, does not espouse communism as its ideology. It is indigenous-based, communitarian, Bolivarian, democratic socialist, anti-neoliberal, left-wing nationalist, left-wing populist, socialist of the 21st century, and anti-imperialist. Nowhere on there is communist listed. The party is not labeled as a communist party. Evo Morales has no affiliation with communist movements. Like, I mean, literally, he's not a communist. And by that token, he's also not an anarchist. So, I guess he's not a leftist in BadEmpanada's eyes. It's a really, really bad argument. Like, it just doesn't make any sense, because, like, there are a lot of socialists that are not anarchist or nor communist. There are socialist movements that don't necessarily travel with the same brand of Marxist thought. You know, like the Pink Tide, the group of people that he basically makes his living on talking about, who don't necessarily base their ideology on orthodox Marxism. A lot of American socialist movements are not necessarily born out of, like, traditional Marxist thought. They're more born out of, like, other movements. In fact, I actually found this very informative guy who's really into Latin American politics and all this kind of stuff, who has actually a very different view about Evo Morales than BadEmpanada does.
Morales is an indigenous left-wing figure.
Morales is an indigenous left-wing figure. Morales is an indigenous left-wing figure.
Wait, hold on. So, people who are not communists or anarchists are not leftists, and yet Evo Morales, who is neither, is a leftist. That's a very interesting development. Like, genuinely, that just came off like, I mean, I was searching for that video because I was like, I know for a fact he said Evo Morales was left wing. I know for a fact he said this. I was like, I have to find this because this is the crux of my argument. And lo and behold, it exists. On one end, you could say that this is him going back against the principles, or it could be, again, a problem with prepared content. When you're prepared, you can make any argument you want, but when you're not prepared, things aren't going to go so well for you. So anyways, that's pretty much all I gotta say. BadEmpanada. All I can really say is his essays are good. You can skip everything else. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that bell to be notified when a future video comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go on our website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, check out my articles on independent political report, or consider supporting me on Patreon.